welcome in everyone. It's your man Dojo with another fresh podcast coming to you. This, of course, is the Polish Ambasstronauts with the Polish Ambasstronauts Web3 exploration, where we sit down with interesting folks, creators, builders, just generally interesting people, and have conversations about their life. Learn more about their story and any lessons. Moving into kind of this Web3 journey. We got a banger here today. We got a good friend of Mr. David Cygalski's. We've got Chris Dyer in the house. So Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, Dojo? Thanks for having me over in your show. It's a beautiful sunny day out here in Denver, Colorado. Where are you at?
Well, I'm in the Bay Area, but yeah, this actually, we got to connect for the first time ever back in February. We were at TPA's launch party, part of ETH Denver, and had a chance to spend a couple minutes in the green room together. And man, I got that conversation. You're just a beautiful human being, by the way. Just so much positivity. I finally get where positive creator and some of those tags come from, because I walked away from our conversation just being like, this man is full of just pure generosity, kindness, and appreciation.
Thank you, man. I try my best to be a good person. Yeah. May we all shine the light of the source through our human physical existence.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I guess your story, kind of starts in Lima, Peru, right?
I was born in Canada, but I grew up in Peru till 17 years old.
Yeah, nice. And did I see somewhere that you kind of one of the turning points was starting to do stuff with broken skateboards and kind of reinvigorating and...
Yeah, so basically I've been skateboarding since 1986. I'm that old. And yeah, I still skate. My knee is not the best these days, but I still love skateboarding. And I went to school for a million years. But when I left school, college, university, whatever, it was okay, what do I, what kind of art I want to do? And the first kind of art I jumped into was skateboard art. At the same time, I was a tree planter for 3 years, and that put me on the positive path of oh wow, this world is nature, this world is trees, this world is life. Yet I'm playing on these pieces of wood, and it didn't make me feel guilty, but I was okay, I don't want to stop skateboarding. Honored wood that I'm using to skate. Sometimes a skate would last me a week, a month, or half a year, depending on how badly I landed my tricks. So then I just decided to start making art on broken skateboards, and yeah, that kind of became my thing. That was 2003 when I finished school, and there was some people who were painting broken skateboards, but in Montreal, kind of became my thing. Where whole shows where I would bring 50 plus painted broken skateboards from me and my friends. And yeah, so that's how I started getting into the world of art, as the guy who was painting psychedelic visions on broken skateboards. And of course, I moved on from that. I'll still paint a board every now and then, but I've done many things since. Just can't stay to one thing forever.
And is it, I saw this tag or phrase of visionary art. Can you just, for myself, education or other people, that's a relatively new term. So what kind of fits in that box and what's outside of that box?
Right. Visionary art is a term for, it's kind of like an umbrella for interdimensional art that comes from the mystical visions, may it done through entheogens or just natural meditation and yoga and spiritual work, trying to depicting the spiritual side of the human experience. And so, there's different versions of visionary art. Psychedelic art is visionary art. Really any art is visionary because it comes from your inner visions and inner expressions, because everything is spiritual and everything is soul expressing through the physical realm. But when people think of visionary art, it's basically visions from the spiritual world. And yeah, so
and that's a big part of your story, right? I've also seen that, like, you have a personal shaman. We talked a little bit about ayahuasca and some of that in the green room, but talk to folks about like how that's impacted your life, or kind of how, just maybe even the story of like how those early days, you know, when you didn't have a shaman to then all of a sudden you've got a shaman. That must be a super interesting story.
Right. And once again, I don't have one these days, but I've worked with different, people who are more advanced than me on the spiritual path than myself. So I try to learn from those who are more advanced in any way. But I always felt like when I look at the drawings that I was doing when I was a kid, it was always about the world of imagination. So the world of imagination is also a visionary place, you know? It's something that doesn't exist, that comes from a, non-physical place, and you bring it on to a painting, a drawing, whatever. And then you can see something that didn't exist before you drawing it, or at least the drawing makes it visible in the physical plane. As for visionary art, or my visionary art, in conjunction with psychedelics or entheogens, I guess my path with that has been varied throughout the years. I guess I started smoking weed around 18 years old, so kind of late compared to people these days. But that was right, which I'm appreciative for, because it helped me give a contrast and a perspective from what we usually see. Then I started using mushrooms, San Pedro, cactus, since I'm from Peru, and other psychedelics here and there. But the work with ayahuasca more came when I was 33 years old. I was in Peru. I was doing a solo show in Lima, and I was talking to this one shaman for years online, and he came to play music at my exhibition, and he's like, "So are you gonna come to the jungle and meet ayahuasca?" And I was actually pretty resistant to do it, because it had become such a fad in the hippie festival that we do. And I was like, well, I don't want to do it in the wrong intentions. I don't want to do it just because it's the cool new thing that people are doing to feel like they got some kind of superior whatever. Plus, I'm also very rebellious. If people think like, oh, here's a Peruvian artist who's doing psychedelic paintings, he's probably getting these visions from a particular portal or entity. And I was like, no, man, like these paintings come from my heart, come from my own internal conversation with spirit, and I don't need a drug or psychedelic in order to bring forth these things. So I was kind of like, no, thank you. I don't want to do this thing just to do it and, have it ghost right through me. But when I met that shaman in person at my show and he invited me to the jungle, my wife at the time, because now I'm divorced, was like, we got to go to the jungle. This is going to be very important for your life. We have to do this. So I went and I communed with that spirit, and it was a super potent conversation. What she showed me was very profound. I had never really seen so much. Ironically, when I take psychedelics, it's more like a feeling than a vision. But with ayahuasca, it was like full-on visions of these different dimensions, and even just a place so deep that was past time and space. And I was like really impressed by the access I had been granted through that. And at the time I was like, okay, I just, I did it to learn, maybe some curiosity, and I was good, and I was just gonna move on with my life, where at the time I was not doing any medicine at all. But then when I encountered struggles with my marriage, it was a very tricky thing, because we loved each other, but our paths had diverged into different directions. She was getting very sick. She was getting a bunch of different physical problems, and she needed me there as a good husband to back her up through that process. But at the same time, my career as an artist was blowing up. I was getting invited to go around the world and paint and teach and do my service, which I've always felt my whole life is why I'm here on this planet. So it's a very conflicting thing. So I was like, I feel I need to go and commune with spirit. So I went to the jungle. I did a whole dieta and a series of ceremonies. And actually ayahuasca told me, like, yes, you have to let go of that relationship. You have to divorce, as hard as it is to let go of your beautiful life with a beautiful wife in a beautiful house in a beautiful neighborhood. Because if you stay in your marriage, you will be there to heal one person, which is good enough. But we're at the time on the planet where we really need to bring up the vibration. We really need to awaken or help move people on their own spiritual path. So if you let go of that relationship, you can be out there as some kind of missionary for love or soul or whatever, and serve thousands of people. And that is more needed these days. And you're more here on this lifetime to do that service than to be a husband and, live a normal life. So I divorced, and not only I saw that ayahuasca gave me that particular answer, but also that I had to continue doing my purges, my cleanses, my centerings with it yearly, as to always be centered in the true me, to be able to serve from my higher self as opposed to my human ego self. So yeah, that's been many years, 7-8 years that I've been working with ayahuasca. It's been really difficult work. It's not a fun situation. It has fun aspects, and it has aspects where it leaves you in a place of peace and balance and gratitude and knowing who you truly are. But to get to those states, you have to go and face your fears and your bullshit and your struggles, and it's not easy work. And the more you advance on it, it almost seems like the harder it gets. It's like, okay, you've graduated to this stage. Okay, now we're going to make the challenges even harder.
Yes. I've certainly seen that in my world as well. It's like the more higher level somebody is, the more willing they are to say, I don't know anything. Like everything that I thought was true is maybe now on the table. Right. That really resonates with me. Let's talk a little bit about travel. I mean, so I love this kind of tag, missionary for love, this larger vision of helping, increasing the vibration for the world. I actually sat down this morning and watched one of your webisodes, kind of the what do you call it, the art ventures or art travel videos in India, because I'd spent some time there, and it's great to kind of see your footage from Delhi to Jaipur to Agra, of course, to see the Taj Mahal, and then it looked like you had a cool experience in, was it Rishikesh? Rishikesh.
Yeah. I love traveling. So basically, I'll put it a little bit to the root. So around age 21, like I lived a fun life. I was an artist, I was a skateboarder, but I was still in a state of negativity, drinking too much, doing mundane human things in order to find my happiness the wrong ways. and there was a yearning to like, move forward or, find my true self. So that's when I went tree planting. And through tree planting, I started hanging out with hippies for the first time. And then you start getting new philosophies and meditation and yoga and proper eating. And
sorry to interrupt, but do you remember the first kind of philosophy change, or like if we go back to some of those early conversations, what were some of those initial conversations that like something that you believed was challenged and maybe you flipped?
Well, in tree planting, you are presented with a land that got deforested, and it's a bunch of just like broken down land with no trees, and and you go there and you plant your trees around 2,000 a day, and that's every day for months. Wow. And in that place, you're just by yourself. It was Walkman days with cassettes, so you hear your music, and then you run out and you're just in silence and you're just planting. So it's like a meditation. And that's where at first, like, it's like, damn, like this is the reality of the world. Yeah. I've been living in cities all my life, Lima, Ottawa, Montreal, and it's all this constructed reality, houses, roads, culture, people, and they're telling you what reality is. But once you leave that and you're hours away from that and you're just in nature with the insects and the dirt and the trees, you're like, whoa, this is the reality of this, nature. And that really kind of like, as simple as it should be, is like, okay, like I gotta pay more attention to the nature of the planet, to the nature of me. Around that time, I was also reading one of my first spiritual books. I always read the Bible as a kid, but the first spiritual book I read was the Celestine Prophecy. And it was a spiritual book with no culture. It was just like about a guy traveling Peru, finding these manuscripts that gave him spiritual realities like synchronicities and being able to visualize auras and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, like, this sounds cool. Like, it's like connecting to the true essence of spirit and God, and not just like a bunch of dogma and culturally flavored expressions of what God should be. Mm-hmm. So the combination of that and being in nature, and then meeting hippies who were telling me how great traveling is, I was like, all right, I'm gonna like, change. I want to be good. I want to be of service. I want to use my art for the betterment of the planet. And that's when I like consciously chose to be positive and do positive things and use my art for good. So then I started traveling. I started hitchhiking around Canada. I started hitchhiking around the States, Hawaii, Mexico. And hitchhiking is very interesting because you're leaving it up to chance. You're putting your thumb out there and you don't know who's going to pick you up. You don't know what that person who picks you up is going to tell you or the message that will give you. But once you start listening with a spiritual perspective, you start hearing the voice of God through the experiences that it gives you. Yeah. So I got addicted to traveling, and once I became less broke and a little bit more financially empowered, I started traveling the world. By now, I've traveled to around 42 different countries. I've, done extensive travels to many countries, and learned from each culture and just seen beneath the culture how we're all just one soul expressing in so many ways, including India. So India was one of my later trips. I did it around the time I was turning 40. And by then my career was doing very good. I had this solo show in Miami during Art Basel. I had some good sales. I was feeling really good about myself. And it's like, all right, like I've always wanted to go to India. That seems like a tougher kind of traveling. Yeah. Let's do this. At the same time, right before I had traveled to Australia, and I hanged out with my friend Olivia Jane, and she had told me that in Rishikesh, there was this old ashram of the Maharishi where the Beatles had stayed at back in the day. But by now, it got abandoned in the 80s, and then nature grew over it. And by now it's a tiger reserve, but that they were allowing street artists to go in there and paint stuff. Awesome. And I love painting murals for jobs or for fun. That was purely like, oh, this is fun. This is for me. This is for painting something very interesting, a place that's collected a lot of energy. Yeah. So that was the main reason why I wanted to go to India, to go to Rishikesh and paint at the Beatles ashram. The whole trip was like a whole month just traveling for the fun of it. Only at the end, I did a little bit of work. I taught a workshop in Goa, which was really nice. I always love teaching and passing on whatever information I have to young artists to empower them. But Rishikesh was awesome. So this guy, Julian, helped me communicate with the locals, and they gave me this egg-shaped meditation dome on top of a building. And it was such a beautiful structure to paint. At the same time, India's so ghetto that you just can't get paint just like that. So smuggled in a couple spray cans, which is super illegal because spray cans are flammable and they don't want you to bring flammables in your suitcases. But I just threw some around my suitcase and my girlfriend's at the time. Yeah. And then you buy buckets of paint, but it's not like you buy a bucket of paint that's like a certain color, like you go to Home Depot here. It's like, I want this color and this color. No. There you just buy a bucket of paint that's white, and then you little bottles of make your own tint, and then you got to put the tint and just mix it. And so it was like super roots, and I had to paint it with a brush, and it was super difficult. The lather was made out of bamboo. It was so dangerous, but I loved it. It took me like days to paint, and I had such a good time. And still it's out there in Rishikesh where people take pictures with it. And it was a great thing to do.
That's amazing. So is that, I mean, you've painted thousands of pieces, but does that one stand out? I mean, not saying it's like on your Mount Rushmore of top 4, but like that's one that you think you'll remember when you're,
life is about the experiences that you live, and that was a great experience. And luckily, that is the kind of painting that people won't bomb over. Like I can paint a mural here in Denver, and sure, maybe more people will get to see it, but because Denver is like a rat race of artists all trying to compete with each other and trying to be like, hey, I'm the new artist, people will go over my mural without any, remorse, because that's the streets, and I accept that. That's street art. It's cool. But in India, it's honored. It's like, whoa, Chris Dyer came here. He painted this beautiful thing on his own budget, on his own effort for people to enjoy. So people leave it alone. They take their pictures with it, and it gets respected and honored and left, for other people to enjoy it. So yeah, I would say it's one of my top 5 pieces that I've painted, at least mural, that I appreciate. And and I'm super stoked that I did.
That's amazing. Well, and again, not to force you up like a competitive hierarchy, but it begs the question, is there a number 1 on that list, like your favorite of all time, or is this like asking, like the dad, like which is your favorite child? Like they're all your babies and you love them equally.
Yeah, I love every painting that I do, but there's some paintings that I do that I'll be like, whoa, that one came out really nice. Like, I don't know what was going on in me that week. Like, I'd say one of my best ones was something I painted in a weed farm in Northern California last summer. And really only the Mexican trimmers that trim around that container get to see it. Wow. But it was a really nice portal. Then there's another one that maybe the painting is not like my most amazing painting, but the location that I painted it was also very special. I got invited in 2018 to paint at the Bob Marley Mausoleum in Jamaica.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So at the time that I got invited to do it is when I was doing that solo show in Miami, and it was such a ambitious project that when I got invited, it's like, I can't even think right now to go to Jamaica and paint. Like I declined at the beginning, and my friend Ray from Moksha family in Miami is like, dude, like you're getting invited by the Marley family, by the brother of Bob Marley, to paint place where Bob Marley grew up and it got buried, and you're gonna decline that? Are you a Bob Marley fan? It's like, I fucking love Bob Marley, dude. Like I've been loving him since I was 12 years old in Peru, and his music has changed my life, and it continues to energize me and empower me and inspire me. Fuck yeah, I'm gonna do this thing. So
I love it.
It was such an honor. I was very nervous to go to Jamaica as a white dreadhead dude at the time. I was like, oh, will they judge me? Or, you know, will people be aggressive towards me because of my choice of hairstyle? But it was really nice. You know, the Rasta that were at the mausoleum were all super roots, Ital, one love, the true Rasta that sees past race and physical expression. And they were all very grateful that I was there to do my service and empower their compound. So yeah, that's another one that comes to mind. And yeah, I painted around the world. I painted in Palestine a couple of years ago. I got invited to paint at a refugee camp, the biggest refugee camp in the West Bank of Palestine, and it was a sketchy, scary situation for me. I'm a sensitive being, and hearing gunshots and people really around me that might not understand what I'm doing. I was there just to like paint pretty things on their walls and be of service and be like, hey, I honor you in your suffering. But they just see, once again, like a white dude with tattoos and dreads. They might associate it with perhaps their oppressors.
Right.
So the kids that were around me, because it was mostly kids, were very tricky on me. They kept on pulling my dreadlocks and throwing things at me, and maybe even making chants to like kind of like make fun of me. It was very challenging, but I'm so happy that I did it and that I went and I just gave what I had, you know, which is, you know, my love through art.
That's amazing. And let's make the connection here to TPA, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was Costa Rica, but maybe you've gotten together a couple times. But you know, talk to us a little bit about like, you know, how did that friendship kind of start or evolve, and maybe you tell us a little bit about the Costa Rica trip.
Right. The first time I have met him a couple of times before, and I'll go back to that. The first time I actually met him in person, the Polish ambassador just kind of like hit me up, being like, Chris, I really love what you're doing and your vibe. Let's hang out. It's like, yo, we're both going to be together in Chicago at North Coast Festival. So he came to my mural, and he came in his little golf cart, and he just drove me around the thing. And I felt so special being with the Polish ambassador in his golf cart. And we went to the backstage to have a meal together and just have a good conversation. That was the first time I've hanged out with him face to face. But I had seen him before. I'd seen his performances. But one that I really remember was in Costa Rica at Envision 2015. And in that opportunity, David, who's always been a really righteous person in my eyes, he's like, okay, we're coming to a different country to party. And that's cool and all, because I guess party uplifts spirits and it's a positive thing. But how are we giving back to the people?
Nice.
So he organized some kind of just planting plants or agriculture. I can't remember the specific name for when you go to a place and improve the
permaculture and like,
permaculture.
Building little community gardens.
Right. He was doing a permaculture thing on this little school on top of a hill in Uvita, close to where Envision Festival was at. And I'm not much of a farmer, but I'm an artist. So what I did is I taught a workshop to the school there. So the school was so small that the class was only 30 people. They didn't have like different years.
All of them are together.
From different ages. And I went there and I gave him a speech in Spanish because, you know, I speak Spanish being Peruvian. And then I painted a kind of like a skeleton of a mural. And I had the kids come and help me paint it together.
Nice.
That was super awesome to paint with all these countryside Costa Rica kids and do something together. And, you know, the Polish ambassador was around and I saw him, but I didn't really speak to him because I'm not about to go, you know, fanboy on anybody. Yeah, that was the roots.
I love it, man. Well, now we're all fanboy on you. I gotta say, since I reconnected with David, and again, we went to college together like 20 years ago, and we stayed in touch off and on, but I definitely was not going to festivals and all of these sorts of things on his rise up to the ladder to this kind of prolific artist and just great person. But then we kind of reconnected around this whole movement of Web3 and NFTs, and I would have never imagined this, but now, you know, we're literally like talking every day, and so it's super cool to, you know, kind of when your paths come together, you know, and I don't know how long they'll be together, but like just to enjoy this moment. And I gotta say, like, for the months that we've been building, you know, there's one project that keeps coming up in time and time again, and that's the Galactic Gang project, man. So kudos to you and, you know, Kyle, and the whole squad. I mean, you guys have built something amazing, but walk us through that process of how that went from an idea to an actual thing to now, you know, it's generating some real money and you all are creating some kick-ass experiences for a really cool community.
Thank you. Yeah, the whole thing with NFT came around 2021, around March. That's where in 1 week I had like 5 different people hit me up being like, Chris Dyer, have you heard of NFTs? And we should do one together. And I'm like, oh, wow. It sounds very interesting. And I can see there's a lot of, and I can see there's a lot of money in it, but I'm not just gonna like jump into it just with not knowing what it is. So I had to give it some time and learn about it and see the goods and the bads and what it was all about. And then around a few months later, I started, like, I think in fall of that year, I started doing my first NFT offerings and it went well. It sold out right away. Did a second one, went well again. And meanwhile, my brand here in Denver, Positive Creations, was telling me like, hey, we should do a whole series of thousands of them. And I'm like, whoa, that sounds super ambitious. I don't know if I want to do that many. But then they told me about how it is to do generative PFPs, that it's not like you're drawing thousands of characters.
The layers, right? And then
right,
mash them up together.
Right, you're drawing the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the ears, the crown, the body, and then an algorithm code kind of shuffles it all up, creating new creatures from it. So I had to wrap my head around it first, but then once I left Canada last Halloween, October of 2021, and I got here, we went out for lunch and the dude's like, okay, Chris, are we going to do this? And it's like, well, I'm here. Let's do this. So I started drawing and then we started generating it. And I was amazing at the creatures that were coming out because it's almost like I was collaborating with AI, which I always resisted because, you know, there's a lot of negative connotations to new technologies that we don't understand, but a lot of beautiful stuff was coming out of it. And then it's like, okay, and now we're going to do this whole community that, once again, I didn't really understand what I was signing up to. But then we did it and we minted, and thanks to the spirits, it all sold out. And now there's this whole community of thousands of people who are in the gang. And yeah, we continue working on the project, doing live events, metaverse events. We went to Hawaii recently to plant hemp to offset the gas that costs to mint these things. And I weekly talk with my community. We give out airdrops. Right now I'm drawing the bodies of these creatures to do other things that I'm not allowed to talk about.
Too much alpha.
Yeah. And so on. There's just so much. Writing a book about what these Galactic Gang members are.
Was that based on the lore, like community submissions? Whoa,
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, we had a contest with people who were telling us what their Galactic Gang member was about, and what the Galactic Gang universe is about. For me, the Galactic Gang are fifth dimensional, interdimensional spirits that serve as guides to humans in the physical realm in our process of going back to the light and finding balance again in a time where good and evil are fighting it out. So they're kind of like our truer selves on a higher dimension, trying to guide us through this process of ascension. So now we're writing like a whole book about the whole story about it, which is really fun too. Yeah, so it's been a really great experience, and very empowering. I'm down with NFTs. I'm down with Web3. On the Web3 side, we've created a whole plugin where people can now connect their wallet to their Shopify store and buy exclusive products that are made only for the Galactic Gang. And we're also making it soon enough that they can also get discounts on my brand, Positive Creations, and so on. So all of this is like super new territory. Even our metaverse is just kind of like a sketch to what will be in the future. But it's all very beautiful. And I don't have so much resistance anymore to these new technologies and ways of going, because, technology is in the middle. It's what you bring to these technologies, what you use these technologies for, that can either bring medicine or poison to a community. And yes, there are the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world who will use those technologies to, create more control and unbalance and, go do it just for the money. But that shouldn't stop the good people and the good communities from uniting in these new places and platforms to bring magic and creativity and medicine. So I'm down and happy to be playing this new video game.
That's amazing, man. And by the way, I picked up my first Galactic Gang. So thanks to the bear market, I was actually able to afford one. You guys were at like 1 ETH at some point. So again, kudos to, a great project, healthy floor, awesome gang. And I can officially say I'm part of the gang now.
Well, welcome to the gang.
Yeah, thanks, man.
The crypto's low right now, so if people want to get in, it only costs a couple $100, as opposed to when the market was up and where it was like over, it was thousands of dollars, and things go up, things go down. I'm sure it'll go up again. But it's not about the money, and sometimes we because there's a money element into this, people can lose perspectives, like, it's a low value now, so now the project has low value. It's like, no, that's just the crypto's ups and downs. And we're still doing our things. I'm still working as hard as ever for the project, money or not. I've committed to create these things for my community that I love. And once things go back up, people will see that we were there in goods and in bad, and then things will be even more prosperous and abundant for us all.
Yeah. And Can I ask, I mean, this might even be an interesting question for David to listen into, but like, how are you balancing this? Because, you know, again, before Web3, this NFT project, you know, you were living your life, doing your thing, missionary of love, you know, spreading art. So how are you finding kind of the time pressures, you know, now of balancing contribution to this new thing and still, you know, getting out to do, you know, what you used to love? Like, is it another thing, or is it maybe is it complementary in some way?
It is complementary. It's like a new branch to my tree. Because I'm just the artist, you know, that's, I don't want to say channeling because it sounds like pretentious, but yeah, like the art that comes from me somehow resonates with a lot of people. So I'm just kind of like in the middle, being like, okay, well, I'm doing my service. It's not about me or being super cool or being above anybody else. I'm just another worker. And the branches that come out will have different leaves that give oxygen to some people. Say the branch that now has become the Galactic Gang, there's all these new people who are like, oh, wow, there's this art, there's this message, there's this vibe, and they're feeding off it and they're stoked on it. Like people who are really into the gang, they're there every week and they're stoked to be part of something that they hadn't found before. Maybe they didn't find Positive Creations or my travel show or my podcast or my live performances or my paintings. Like they might have just joined the gang and it's like, oh shit, this guy was doing all this other stuff before and cool, but I'm more into the NFT stuff and these like crypto people. That's their flavor for the energy that I'm trying to share.
That was totally me, by the way. When I went and checked out like your YouTube channel, I was like, oh shit, this guy has been publishing stuff for 10 years. Like, you know, like you're an OG, man. Like, it's not like you just started this yesterday. You've been putting out art and sharing your stories and documenting the journey the whole time. So you're just sitting on, you know, a war chest of, you know, great stuff and assets that could potentially be leveraged, you know, for this new branch or for new things.
Right, and that's why the Galactic Gang worked out well. If I would have been like not done all that work and groundwork from the beginning, and I just show up, it's like, hey, here I am, another artist with some art. Are you gonna get in or out? People might have been like, oh, this is cool art, but I don't know if it will be good enough. But since it's like, well, it's Chris Dyer, and he's been at it for like 20 years, and I doubt that he's gonna like shit on his brands and artistic name to like do a rug pull where he takes our monies and runs away. I'm gonna trust this one. But yeah, like I'm not, you know, I appreciate money, like I appreciate abundance and to be sustained, so then I can continue to do my art in comfort, as opposed to always stressing out. It's like, oh shit, gotta pay my mortgage and blah blah blah. But I'm gonna always do my art no matter what. That's why I was born. Like I'm a naturally creative, expressive person. Like the travel show, that's a lot of work, but I never made any money from my YouTube stuff. And these days I do a podcast show and it's a lot of work. And each episode I gotta pay my editor, cost me money. And I'm not making any profit from that. But it's my service, you know, like humanity needs more positivity. There's so much negative media. There's so much negativity in this world. I'm going to give as much positivity and nutritious content to whoever wants to feed from it, as to raise the vibration in the world, or at least in that person who might resonate with what I got to offer.
Well, and that's, I mean, quick plug if folks haven't checked that out. I actually just listened to your last podcast that you just released with Illuminati Congo. So I was just looking at my notes, just going, oh, like this guy is interviewing and talking with super creative, interesting people. So again, thanks for all those contributions out there. And for everyone tuning in here that is not tuned into that show, subscribe, hit the like, you know, all the things. You know what to do. You know what to do. But Chris has been putting out great stuff for a long time.
Yeah, Chris Dyer YouTube channel.
yeah, exactly. Now, you know, we can kind of wind down here, but I'm just curious, what advice do you have for either maybe people like you who have maybe big followings, you know, successful, but haven't touched NFTs or Web3 at all. So that's kind of like one category of person I'm thinking about. And then let's flip to the other side where maybe somebody has no audience right now, but they're super into crypto and NFTs and they want to be, you know, a creator and grow a following and do NFTs and all of that. So like, what advice would you have for kind of those two mythical folks?
Okay, for the established artist, I would say research this thing before you jump into the waters. Have conversations with people who are already swimming in it. I've had to talk to so many friends. Like once my things were successful, I had so many friends come to me being like, all right, Chris, tell me all you know. I was like, well, that's at least an hour long conversation, but you're my friend, make the time. Then I made some Instagram videos kind of like explaining how it was for me to try to save myself some time because it was just eating a lot of, you know.
Yeah, send them a link. Yeah, watch this first and then we can talk.
Right. But I'd say know what you're getting into, know what a blockchain you want to support, you know, because for example, some blockchains use no energy, so that's better for the environment. Or if you're going to use a blockchain that does use energy so that it's more successful, make sure that you give some of your profits to environmental charities that can replant to offset that emission. Like that's a factor to look at.
And real quick plug to Humans I Trust, NFTs, right? So again, we got, you know, their information from you, and that is exactly what we did on our first drop, was just going, beautiful. Hey, we're gonna pick ETH because it kind of is where all the NFT action is, but we absolutely want to be carbon positive if we can. So we held back money from our mint to do exactly what you're talking about, which I think is a fantastic move. But sorry to interrupt. Continue.
Thanks. Yeah, so that's one factor. Also, if you're gonna do a series, know that it's more than just putting our art out there and ducking out and that's that. No, you're now like engaging with thousands of people and they want you to be there and communicate with them constantly and continually give them utility. So the work doesn't end by once it got minted and sold out. There's a lot of work to be. Perhaps you don't want to do that work. I was talking with Android Jones. He's like, oh, I could do this very easily, but I don't want to be my time being owned by all these people forever. It's like, okay, well, that's your choice. And that's totally honorable. Yeah, you might want to use that time to do something else that's more valuable for yourself. So those are a couple of variables I would say to the established artists. As for the artists who don't have that much of a following, but are really into the world, I'd say, yeah, get into the world, buy other people's NFTs, get into the community, observe, show up to meetings, see what's working for them. And then if you're going to do an offering as an NFT, make a kick-ass NFT, you know, make amazing art, get it animated like by a good animator. So like what you're offering is like, damn, this is like a really cool offering. I want this just on the art sake. I don't know who this person is, but this is really cool. I want it in my collection. So that will help you out a lot. And yeah, just accept that you won't probably get what you want. If you succeed, cool. If you don't, that's just like the rest of the art world. You can go and put your painting in a gallery and it might not sell, and that's c'est la vie, you know, that's and you just keep on trying or find some other place or platform to, you know, share your expression.
Yeah, I love that advice. And I'm reminded of, there's a professor at the University of Pennsylvania by the name of Adam Grant. He wrote this great book called Give and Take. And he kind of talks about different people, you know, on the planet. Some people are givers, some people are takers. And they actually said the biggest category is matchers, you know, people that are trying to like make sure that everything's equal. So if you do something nice for me, I'm going to try and return the favor. But, you know, great things happen to givers. You know, they can kind of end up on the top of the pyramid. And by the way, they can end up on the bottom of the pyramid if they don't set boundaries and they let other people take advantage of them. But it's like this focus on creating value for others, I think, you know, is just so true. Like, in the real world, and I've seen it work in the Web3 world as well.
Right. There's karma too, you know, if you've been of service, if you've been giving,
Yes.
giving, then when it's your time to ask, like, hey, buy my NFT, people be like, you know what? You've been giving me years of content and things that inspired me.
Yeah.
I want in with you. But if you're just being out there, just taking, maybe it won't happen so much.
Yeah.
And sadly enough, there's a lot of takers in this world. And sometimes even the givers, it's their time to be taken from. And you got to accept the ups and downs of the universe in the same way you got to accept the ups and downs of the crypto world.
Yeah.
I don't know why good people have to suffer. But it's just, you know, the picture is so big and I'm just a little grain of sand in a beach. So I just accept it all as good. All is perfect and beautiful in its own way. And at the end of the day, we all go back to the sea of love. Yeah. So, you know, all I can do is try to get myself one step closer to the ocean and pull anybody I can with me back to love and oneness and giving and goodness. And yeah, try my best.
That's so beautiful, man. And I guess maybe my last question, what's, you know, if you look out 1, 2, 3 years, what are some of your dreams, intentions, you know, I don't want to say goals, but just what's exciting you as you look forward in your life?
I've done a lot of things on my path, at least artistically already. I've put out books, I've done my documentary, I've done many projects, I've exhibited around the world, I've traveled. At this point, I just want to kind of like simplify. I just want to once again find where I find to be home, to be at peace, and paint even better paintings than before. At the end of the day, my biggest offering will be these paintings that take me like half a year to a year to paint, that people can see for years after my life has ceased to be. And I've left a lot of really nutritious goodness for people to enjoy. I'd like to do that, perhaps do a family thing. I'm in my 40s and, you know, still haven't found my one and created a human. Not that that has to be that way, but it seems like something good to do.
Yeah, it's a good intention. Yeah.
And just continue being at service, you know, like the NFT thing came out of nowhere. So I'm sure other things will come out of nowhere and be like, hey, maybe this year will be all about making a cartoon depicting this or that, or I don't know, man. Like I'm just an observer, and whatever comes my way, and if it resonates, I'm happy to be of service and give my offering. But for now, I just want to be I want a home, I want somebody to love, and I want to paint. It's very simple.
Basic necessities right there.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be too complicated. I don't have to prove myself year after year. Like, look what I'm doing. Am I good enough now? Do you guys like me now? It's cool. Can I feel good about myself now? Fuck it. I just want to feel good sitting on this couch and you know, being myself.
Yeah, I love it. And I haven't read too many of the spiritual books, but you kind of reminded me of the one I read in, well, high school. I guess I read it in college as well, but like The Alchemist, right? Of like just, it's a bit of that hero's journey, and you know, your treasure is out there, and then all along, spoiler alert, you know, it's right where you started, right? So I love, you know, this conversation about, I mean, and again, just your humility, your generosity, your travels. You just brought so much joy to so many people for decades. And I love this mission of leaving some legacy pieces, you know, really focusing, getting to the next level of consciousness and letting it flow, not being too predetermined, but, you know, pay attention, be an observer, follow the good omens, you know, protect yourself from the negativity, and the path will find you. So anyways, brother, this has been amazing. The dog is barking, and actually I've got a guy renting our little Airbnb in the backyard. He's waxing his surfboard right now. So it seems like a good time for us to close up shop as we head into the weekend, man.
Nice, beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Dojo, for the beautiful conversation. Thanks for having me over. Big ups to David. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you in IRL soon enough.
Nice, man. Look at these 40-year-olds using these hip acronyms. IRL. We can do it. We could do it too. And note that, hey,
right there saying that.
and you know, I know we floated it out there, and I don't want to invite you over, but I mean, you know, there's a certain place in the Sierra foothills, you know, with goats that I'm sure would be a beautiful sanctuary to hang out and resonate and vibe. And yeah, just anyways, I know David adores you and what you built. And anyways, it was just a real pleasure hanging with you today.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully I'll end up there this summer as I tour around.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Awesome. All right. Be well. And thanks again, folks, for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next show.